Hi, I'm Todd Harrison. I'm a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, and today I want to show you the Defense Budget Navigator. This is a tool we created to help make the U.S. defense budget more accessible. It takes thousands of pages of budget documents over many years and puts it all at your fingertips so you can easily search through the data and visualize key trends in the budget. So you start by going to our website here, defensebudget.aei.org, and that will take you to the home page of the tool. Now, if you want to put it in full screen mode, you can blow up your browser and then click this little icon on the right-hand side, and that will put you into full screen mode. If you click it again, it'll take you back to the regular mode. The tool is organized into 5 main sections, and within each section there are multiple pages. And so I'm going to walk you through and show you some of the highlights in each of these sections. In the overview section, if you click on Budget versus Personnel, this shows you a chart with the DoD budget versus the size of the force over time. On the upper left-hand side, you'll find the navigation panel. This is pretty consistent throughout the tool. This shows the different sections of the tool. So if you want to jump between them, and it shows you the different pages under each section. If you click on those, it'll take you right to those other pages. And of course, the AEI logo here at the top, if you click on that, it will take you back to the home page where you started. And the filters section below that, you can filter the data between then-year dollars, which is not adjusted for inflation, and constant FY25 dollars, which is adjusted for inflation. You can also filter the data by military department if you just want to see the data for only one department. Now, if you want to see the details in the data, you can hover your mouse over a particular data point and it'll show you the detail value for that. And if you want to just highlight some of the data in the chart, you can click on it in the legend, and that will just highlight only that part of the data you're looking at. Now, if we go to budget by title, this is the DoD budget just broken out by the titles in which Congress appropriates the funding. The filters are a little different here. You can filter it by type of appropriation. So for example, if you want to take out overseas contingency operations funding, you can deselect that and the data will adjust accordingly. Again, you can still filter it by military department and you can adjust it for inflation or not. If we go to budget by department, this is another view of the budget. You may be wondering, why is defense-wide negative here? That's because in 1991, we were reimbursed by other countries for the cost of the first Gulf War, and that counted as a negative budget entry in defense-wide accounts. Again, you can filter it by appropriation type, or you could filter it by title within the budget if you want to see a different view of the data. If you go to the operation and maintenance section of the tool, the trends page breaks out the O&M part of the budget by military department. The cost per person breaks out O&M funding divided by the number of people in each of the military services to show you the O&M cost per person. You can filter this by component to show active, guard, or reserve. I should point out here that Space Force O&M is not yet shown because we don't yet have enough data in the historical record to show a good trend line. If you go to the personnel section of the tool, the cost per person shows on the left-hand side the average cost per DoD civilian, full-time equivalent in the force. These are total costs incurred by DoD for the civilian workers. On the right-hand side, it shows the average cost per active duty service member. And keep in mind that the cost per service member is not just military personnel costs, it also includes healthcare costs, which is in the O&M part of the budget, family housing, and other personnel-related costs. The pay raises page within the tool shows the civilian pay raise for each year in green columns, the military pay raise for each year in the blue columns, and it compares it to the Consumer Price Index for urban workers and the Employment Cost Index. Keep in mind that the CPI and the ECI are backward-looking measures when you're comparing it to the pay raises for a given year. If we go to the acquisition section of the tool, the trends page shows overall RDT&E funding in blue and procurement funding in green. If you click the Show Ratio button, it brings up a yellow line that just shows the ratio of procurement funding to RDT&E funding for each year. Again, you can filter it by military department, by type of appropriation. So for example, if you wanted to take out that war-related funding, you can see how that affects the results. And you can do it in constant dollars or in then-year dollars. If you go to the RDT&E page, that is Research, Development, Test, and Evaluation. The chart on the top here shows the 5-year projection of funding included in each budget request. The green lines are from the Obama administration budget request. Red lines are from the Trump administration. The blue lines are from the Biden administration. The yellow line shows the final enacted funding for each year. On the lower left-hand chart, this shows all of the program element lines within the budget request rank ordered by the total amount of funding over the 5-year projection. On the lower right-hand side, this shows the total amount of funding over the 5-year projection organized by budget activity. You can filter the bottom two charts by budget request if you want to go back and look and see what the data was in previous budget requests. And you can filter this whole page by military service if you just want to see what's happening in the RDT&E budget for one particular service. And there is a search function down here if you want to find a particular funding line. It searches for any words that appear within the description or in the name of that program element. So for example, if I search for NGAD, it'll pull up every mention of the acronym NGAD, and then I can find the Next Generation Air Dominance program funding line. If I click on the name of that particular line item in this chart, the Details button will appear. If I click on Details, it takes me to a page for that particular program element. It shows the different projects that fall under that program element and the funding by project. It includes the description that's provided in the budget request. And it goes back and looks at past congressional action, showing what was requested for each year versus what was finally enacted by Congress for each year. It also compares previous FYDP projections. FYDP is the Future Years Defense Program, so you can see how the projections for this particular funding line have changed over time. I should point out here that there is a filter for then year versus constant year funding. The budget request actually reports the data in then year dollars, so if you're comparing to what's in the budget documents, make sure you have that selected. You can click back here and it takes you back to the main RDT&E page, and if you click the eraser button here, it will clear out your search selection. If you go to the procurement page, it's a very similar format. The top chart again shows the 5-year projection for procurement funding by each budget request. The yellow line is the final for each year. The lower left chart is organized by procurement line item, rank ordered by the total amount of funding projected over the 5-year period of this budget. The lower right chart takes the total amount of procurement funding in the 5-year projection and organizes it by category. You can click on a particular category and it will filter the program line items to just those that fall under that category. On the left-hand side, again, you can show the data in the bottom two charts by different budget submissions if you want to look back at what was included in the past. You can also filter them by military service, and there is another search line. If you want to search, for example, for B-21, it pulls up any line item related or that mentions the B-21. If you click on that, it filters it down to just that line item. Click on that line item, it will then take you to the details page. On the procurement details page, if quantity is provided, it will show the quantity by year. It shows the description from the budget request. It also shows past congressional action and past budget requests, how they compare in the 5-year projection of funding. You click back, it'll take you back to the main procurement page. Now, another interesting feature that we built into the tool is the major programs budget page. That lumps together all the funding for major programs because many of them have RDT&E funding lines as well as procurement funding lines. Some of the joint programs will have funding lines across military services as well. So this page, you can filter it by budget submission if you want to go back and look at what the major program lines were in previous budgets. You can also filter it by category. If you just want to focus on shipbuilding, for example, just pull up those major programs. And of course, they're rank ordered by the total amount of funding over the 5-year projection. If you click on the name of one, the details page will come up. And that will take you to a page for that particular program. And it shows past congressional action for the total program, including all of its related funding lines. It shows you a comparison of the total FIDEP projections and the quantity projections. And if you hit back, it'll take you back to that main program page. Now, the last section is the Outlook section of the report. The FIDEP projections page just shows the overall DoD budget as projected in each budget request. You can filter this by title if you just want to see how one particular title of the budget compares to previous budget requests. You can also choose whether you want to include discretionary funding only or if you want to include mandatory funding as well. And you can filter it by military service if you just want to see how the FIDEP projection compares for one of the military services. Now, if you click on FIDEP by service, it puts all the services plus defense-wide on one page, so you can see how their budget requests in the most recent budget compare to previous budget requests. And again, you can filter it by discretionary and mandatory. You can show it in then-year dollars or in constant year dollars. The federal budget page actually shows the overall federal budget going back in time to 1976 in the data. By default, it is in constant dollars. Of course, you can change that. You can filter it to just the discretionary part of the budget, or you can include discretionary, mandatory, net interest payments as well. And by default, it only shows the major budget functions in the overall federal budget, but you can go back and select other budget functions as well if you want to include them for the comparison. The last page I'm going to show you here is process delays in getting the budget enacted. The chart on the left shows the number of days late the administration was in delivering its budget request to Congress past the statutory deadline. The middle chart shows the number of days late Congress was in enacting the National Defense Authorization Act, that is the policy bill for defense. And the chart on the right shows the number of days late that Congress was in enacting defense appropriations. And if you scroll down on each of these charts, it'll show you the data going back in time. The color coding of the bars is according to the presidential administration at the time. So that's an overview of the AEI Defense Budget Navigator tool. We will be keeping the data up to date over time, and we'll be adding new charts and new displays as they become available. You'll be able to see them by navigating to this tool.